Welcome to Embrace Change with Kate and Mindful Monday. Just another day to be fully present, grateful, and always awesome. So if this is your first time listening, I'm Kate Olson, your host, and I'm also a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, Reiki master, life coach, and I like to call myself a change adventure navigator, because I love guiding people through the obstacles and adversity to find their path, purpose, and peace. And when I'm not doing that, I get to interview amazing people on Embrace Change Radio about interesting topics related to mind, body, spirit wellness. And today's show is Treat the Cause, a more holistic approach to medicine. And I'll be talking with Dr. Stephen Hall, who's an MD specializing in integral medicine and an author and speaker. So we have a great giveaway today, and that is an ebook called Inner Peace. And you can get that by going to the radio website, embracechangeradio.com. Click on giveaways and offers and fill in your info, and we'll send that right out to you. So I'd like to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, and that's CTFO CBD. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, try CTFO. They're 100% organic, pure hemp, GMO and animal cruelty-free, GMP manufacturing standards, and they have products for health and nutrition, pain relief, beauty, anti-aging, and pet care. So you can go to the radio website, that's embracechangeradio.com /sponsor, and then click on the image there and you'll be able to go to the website. So this is Mindful Monday, just another day to be fully present, grateful, and I hope you started out your day with a smile. Actually, I hope you start every day with a smile. But if you haven't smiled yet today, take a deep breath right now and smile. Smiling not only is, happy, fun thing to do, but it's good for your health. It releases all kinds of helpful endorphins. And so even better than smiling is laughing. So I have a little joke for you to give that smile a little boost. And this joke is about a doctor's office in honor of our guest today. So it's called Difficult Deliveries at the Doctor's Office. So a man walks into the doctor's office and the receptionist asks him what he has. And he says, shingles. So she took his name, address, medical insurance number, and told him to have a seat. A few minutes later, a nurse's aide comes out and asks him what he has. He says, shingles. So she took his weight, height, and the complete medical history and told him to wait in the examining room. 10 minutes later, a nurse comes in and asks him what he has. He says, shingles. So she gives him a blood test, blood pressure test, electrocardiogram, asks him to take off his clothes and wait for the doctor. 15 minutes later, the doctor comes in and asks him what he has. He says, shingles. The doctor says, where? So he says, outside in my truck. Where do you want them? Well, I hope you got a laugh out of that. It's all about asking the right questions. So I'm happy to have our guest today. We all get a little frustrated trying to communicate and deal with medical issues and healthcare. And so I think you'll appreciate the approach that today's guest takes in treating patients. Dr. Stephen Hall, MD, began his medical career in 1985 as a board-certified family practitioner. His practice has been strongly influenced by his search for the answer to two questions. What is healing, and how can I best help you with yours? His searching quickly took him beyond conventional medicine and toward the world's leading healing traditions. He excels in taking seemingly conflicting ideas, finding common ground, and integrating them. He currently practices a form of specialty care that integrates conventional and many forms of alternative medicine into what he calls integral medicine. Dr. Hall takes the time to listen to your story and think deeply about what is going on with you. He treats as close to the root causes as can be found and treats as natural as possible. With his integral medicine approach, he excels at solving problems that have eluded other methods. Dr. Hall practices cranial sacral therapy on an advanced level, treating many chronic ailments that are pervasive or thought to be without a cure. He has a special interest in helping patients become resilient to stress so that whatever is going on in their lives doesn't cause illness. So we will talk to Dr. Hall a little bit later. We need to take a quick break right now, and we'll be right back. We're back, and you're listening to Embrace Change with Kate. In our show today, and I'm about to introduce our guest, Dr. Hall. So I'm really excited to introduce him. We're going to talk not only about his practice, but about his book, The 7 Tools of Healing. Hi, Dr. Hall.
Hi, Kate.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me to come on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're anxious to hear more about what you do. So can you tell us a little more about your background and what brought you to your current path?
Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, I am an MD. I'm trained in family practice. But early on in my career, I got interested in helping people that couldn't find good answers in medicine. And it turns out there's a lot of people that medicine can't really help. And I just knew in my gut there had to be an answer for these folks. And so I started searching and, just wanting to find better ways to help these people. So, I started studying nutrition. I studied herbs, homeopathy. I looked into different kinds of body work, what chiropractors had to offer, obviously massage, physical therapy, and I looked at other healing traditions around the world, like Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, and just trying to find ways to help these people. And I noticed when I was an undergraduate that I did have a kind of a knack for taking information from different disciplines and seeing how, what they had in common and how to put them together to make a more complete system. And so I started doing that with all that I was learning about healing from all these different world traditions, and came up with what I call integral medicine. And it is a step beyond, I think, what people are calling integrative medicine nowadays, because it's more than just sticking a few alternative practices onto the side of conventional medicine, which is how most people are practicing integrative medicine.
Okay. So you shared with me your philosophy and perspective on the relationship between change and healing. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes. So healing implies change. So if you're here in your life and there's some healing that needs to happen and you want to move over there in your life where the healing has happened, something has to change. You can't just keep doing the same thing that you've always been doing and expect something else, something different, because that's just crazy. So in order to help my patients with their healing, I started exploring, well, this process of change, like how do we actually get ourselves to change? How can you change how you eat or how you exercise or, behave differently within your relationships or, just make different choices for yourself. So how do people actually do that? And when I started digging into it, I started coming across all these references where psychologists were talking about that so few people actually make deep, meaningful, like lasting change, that they were actually believing that people don't change. And that just hasn't been my experience in my practice. And I thought, well, what's that about? Um, and what I saw um, is that it's not that change isn't possible. It's that most of the ways that we've devised so far to help ourselves change don't actually work very well. And so I looked at that, like why, you know, there's this huge self-help industry out there and tons of advice, more advice than you can even access in a day, and how come change is so rare? And and so I actually found an answer to that question and was able to develop a fairly simple, straightforward, teachable methodology that actually helps people make deep, lasting inner change.
Okay, so uh, what what was that methodology? Or maybe we can go into that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's the 7 tools.
So, okay. So what motivated you to write your book, The 7 Tools of Healing?
Well, yeah. So when I came across this approach, and we'll talk about how I came across the approach, um, and then I compared it to like I said, the advice that's already out there. They weren't at all alike, and I thought, well, wait a minute, how could there be such a disconnect? There's a lot of really smart people out there trying to help people with their healing and their change, and then I realized, well, there's really a lot of smart people in medicine too, and there's a really big disconnect between conventional medicine and real healing. So I guess it's possible to still have that disconnect. So, and then I also looked and saw that, there's who knows how many millions of people are spending so many hours of their time and so much money trying to get themselves better. And they're using these techniques and these ideas that are just too superficial, or they don't actually get to the real root causes. And so they're wasting their time and money. I mean, I've had patients come in that have been working on themselves for decades, and they were still working on the same issues. And so I knew there had to be an answer, a better answer for these folks, and I think I've come up with one. And so I'm really excited to get what I've learned out to the world. And so again, I really appreciate your help.
Why you wrote your book.
That's why I wrote the book. Yeah, to kind of get that word out, to people.
Okay, so what are the 7 tools for healing from your book?
So early in my searching, as I was looking through all these things, pretty soon I got overwhelmed with how much information was available. And I mean, just in family practice, where we have to try to keep up on all the different specialties, that's a lot of information. But then you start adding in all these alternative medicines and nutrition and psychology and energy work. And so I just started to fritz, and I go, there's got to be a simpler way. And another concept that kept coming up over and over in all the different world traditions that I was looking into was this idea that we all have this deep inner wisdom. We all have a deep knowing inside. And one of the things that knowing is doing is running your physical body. So you don't have to think about your sodium levels and your potassium levels and your skin temperature, and you don't have to think about almost everything that runs your body. But that deep inner wisdom also knows when something goes out of balance in your body, and it's the one that sets up the symptoms as like an alarm to get your attention. And it also knows what your soul came here into this life to experience. And so I thought, well, what if I could help my patients get in touch with their own deep inner knowing and see what it has to say about their problems in their life. And I found a way to do that by combining the craniosacral therapy with clinical hypnosis, and started getting people in touch with their inner wisdom. And over time, I noticed a pattern with how the people's inner wisdom helped them. It's like it took over as this personal health coach, and it started coaching them in developing a set of skills, like abilities, skills, like. And then when they applied whatever was going on in their life, they applied those skills to that, they just naturally healed. And so I started calling that set of skills the 7 tools of healing. So that's where they came from, is from watching people's own inner wisdom helping them solve their life's problems.
Okay, you answered a different question than the one I asked, but that's good. That gives us a little background on the purpose of the 7 tools. So what I wanted to know was specifically, what are those 7 tools? Because then I'm going to ask you to explain each of them.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Yes, you gave us a background, and that's good.
Can I answer the second question now then? And
well, no, you haven't told us what the 7 tools are.
Okay. Well, the 7 tools, so these skills are simply faith, awareness, acceptance, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and right action.
Okay, and now you can give us a little overview of each of these tools in the context of healing, so we can get an idea of how they would work.
Okay, so the first tool I see functions like a foundation, and it's that everything else is built on that foundation. And people's inner wisdom does use that word faith. And what I've noticed is there's a big misunderstanding in our culture about faith, and because it's not actually a set of beliefs that you believe in. So like when we say I'm a person of faith, people assume that there's certain beliefs that you hold. But what faith actually is an idea about how strongly you believe what you believe. So it's like when your faith is really strong, that belief can't be shaken. Doubts don't stand a chance. And so the way the inner wisdom uses faith is it's the strength of your beliefs. And the reason that's important is that determines how well you can manifest things. So when you believe something, but you barely believe it, it's hard to make that actually come true in your life. But if you believe something at the level of conviction, then that can really manifest. And so it turns out that faith can be strengthened with practice. And so you choose what you believe in, but then you practice strengthening your faith so that those beliefs can actually come true in your life. So that's how the inner wisdom uses faith. And so then the second tool is awareness. And you can also think of it as mindfulness. That's a term that's used a lot in self-help industry. But what awareness does is it moves information from the not known over to the known. So it makes things that you're previously unaware of, then you become aware of it. So it turns out it's a lot easier to work on something in your life if you know it's there. So we practice that awareness, and then and so knowing your truth. So what you become aware of actually is your truth in this present moment, because that's all that exists is this moment. The past is gone, the future's not here. There's just this moment. And this moment contains all the influences from the past, but also all the possibilities for your potential futures. And so it's plenty rich. There's there's a lot to be aware of here in this present moment. And so knowing your truth in this present moment helps you be able to make changes to that truth, so that your next present moment is better than this one. So that's sort of what awareness does. So then what the inner wisdom says is, okay, now that you're aware of it, that this is your truth, you've got to really let in and accept that this is your truth. And because if you deny it or repress or deny it, you're actually focusing your awareness on that, and then that you keep creating more of what you're repressing and denying. And so that's why that saying, what you resist persists, is true, because that's just how your consciousness works. So for a long time, I didn't think that tool was very important, because I sort of skipped over it. But boy, the more I understood these 7 tools, the more important I think it is, because that's a major block most of us have, is we don't want to admit our truth because we're afraid that if we admit it, then it's going to stay there longer, when actually the exact opposite is true. You can't get it to change until you admit the truth of it. So inner wisdom keeps telling people, you got to see your truth for what it is. There's no point in fighting it. There's no point in resisting it. You just let it in, and then you're in a position to change it. You're not putting your effort into inadvertently keep creating it. So then the inner wisdom says, okay, now that you see what you're going through, you fully accept what you're going through, the next step is to just be kind to yourself about it. Get off your back about it. Give yourself a hug about it. And so it coaches people in, just really opening their heart to themselves. And that's what causes the change. People can't force things to change with their ego mind. I mean, we're constantly trained to do that, but it doesn't work. And we don't let it go because we think it ought to work, and it just doesn't. But what changes things is the kindness. And so I call compassion the alchemist, because it's what works the change. And I would have to say, I've been in practice for about 33 years now, and I've only seen 2 things actually really heal people. And one is surgery, and the other one is that self-compassion, that kindness, self-compassion. So then when you bring enough compassion to the situation, it's almost like there's a certain threshold required for each situation. But once you reach that threshold, then any forgiveness that needs to happen just naturally happens. And so that's the 5th tool, is forgiveness. And again, almost all the major wisdom traditions in the world teach forgiveness. But if you try to force yourself to forgive, and you haven't worked through all the anger or all the issues yet, that forgiveness doesn't transform anything. Doesn't actually change anything. So what I've witnessed is forgiveness arrived at through the practice of, I put those 3 tools together by saying I practice compassionate, accepting awareness of what is, or of the moment. So that's sort of my mantra. I practice compassion, accepting awareness of what is. And then as soon as that compassion reaches a point, then the forgiveness just happens, just makes sense. And it's kind of like, oh, of course. And you just let it go. And when people reach that point, when I'm working on them, you can really feel the release spread through their whole body. It's amazing. And so that's the 5th tool. And then usually once that forgiveness happens, people often get a sort of a glimpse behind the scenes. They kind of see, well, okay, this is what Spirit's been up to all along to give me these experiences. And they get the learning or the blessing that's in each experience. Because again, most of the world's wisdom traditions teach that there's a blessing in everything, right? That letter from Fra Giovanni, it really states that, the take joy letter. I don't know if you've seen that letter. But anyway, and so people kind of become overwhelmed with this sense of, well, thank you for giving me this learning and this gift. and this deepening understanding of myself. And that sense of awe, that sense of wonder is what I call gratitude. If you've ever experienced that, had that come on. So that's the 6 tools, gratitude. Now, what's interesting is people can practice gratitude directly and still get benefit from it. So keeping a gratitude journal, focusing on what you're really grateful for during the day does actually help with change.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not repressing or denying anything in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but gratitude arrived at once the forgiveness happens and you've worked through everything, that's really a profound experience for people. And those aha moments and stuff. So then the 7th tool is right action. And right action is based on this idea that the results, the actions you take in your life lead to the results that you get, right? And so right action is the idea that that's going to lead to the results that are in your highest good or in the highest good of everyone involved. So there's also the idea that right action is based on right understanding. And my contention is that if you practice those first 6 tools of healing, you will arrive at right understanding. And so then you'll just know what to eat, what's best for you to eat right now. You'll know what's the best exercise to do. You'll know the right decisions to make, what to say to that child, what to do with your life when you grow up. I mean, you'll be able to answer all those questions because you'll have right understanding. So
Yes.
those are the 7 tools, and you can see how they're linked into this process of change. That you've got to see your truth in the present moment if you're ever going to be free of it, and then let your heart work the change. Your ego mind doesn't have to work the change. And then with that deeper understanding of who you really are and that connection with your knowing, you'll know how to act.
Great. Yes, and that also fits in with, like being in alignment. I mean, if you're thinking all the things you think you should think or that you think are right, but you're not acting on them, it's just like your body being out of alignment. It doesn't work right.
Right. And people often talk about that flow, being in the flow, and things just happen, gifts come out of the woodwork. So this is a way to sort of help yourself get into that flow, by
Yes.
letting go of any resistance and denial and accepting your truth.
So, what is the actual most important message or main purpose that you wanted to achieve with your book?
Well, the main message is, if you practice these 7 tools, then you're going to be more able to live your life with what your heart knows.
Okay.
That's
So, so I know you feel that stress plays a huge part in illness and dysfunction in our bodies, and that we need to both learn how to manage stress, but also how to eliminate it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so stressors, that's it, any experience that puts a strain or a load on your system. So stressors are an inevitable part of our life. But stress happens when the sum total of your stressors exceeds your own threshold to adapt and compensate for those strains and loads and things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I look at stress, there's no such thing as good stress unless you really want to get sick. There are good stressors that have good results, like the competition at the Olympics that gets the athlete to perform more. I mean, that's a stressor, but it's good. Or the deadline at work or whatever. So there. But most stressors in our life are only stressors because of the way that we look at them. Okay. And if we could change how we look at them, then they don't have to be stressors for us. Because most of the time we don't have any control over, you know, how somebody else treats us, or whether we leave the house and get stuck in traffic, or, you know, that sort of thing. And so, so by practicing these 7 tools, you get to choose how you look at things, because you can find and change these limiting beliefs that make up your worldview. And so that's how we use the tools to deal with stress. So, you know, instead of overwhelm, for example, you can learn to see it as an interesting challenge, or, well, here's an opportunity to learn something new, and dive into it, for example, instead of seeing it as this drag. And, you know, so, but the problem is, the second you see it that way, in fact, the millisecond you see it that way, your body's going to respond with a stress response, which is a hardwired physiological reflex in our body. And once that stress response gets triggered, it releases a couple of hormones like adrenaline, which gets your heart rate going and that sort of thing. And that's out of your system in a few minutes. But it also releases cortisol, which stays in your system for 3 to 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so it turns out you only need 2 or 3 stressors a day to essentially spend the whole day in that stress physiology. And that's what makes you sick. That's what makes people sick from stress. So you've got, since it happens within a millisecond of you perceiving that overwhelm or that threat, you've got to do this work ahead of time to where you don't even perceive it as a threat or overwhelm in the first place. And that's how you keep your body out of the physiological stress response.
So what are some good ways to manage stress?
Well, that's a good question, because most of the stress programs out there, that's what they're trying to teach, is managing stress. And I don't think we have good data to show that managing stress works. I mean, managing stress is how we've been trying to deal with it for 20, 30 years. And during that time, the number of people who self-identify as stressed keeps going up and up and up. And the number of people developing stress-related chronic illnesses keeps going up and up and up. So what we've been doing in our society to manage stress hasn't been working. So my idea is, well, just don't go to stress in the first place. You know, prevent yourself from ever crossing that threshold. And so that's why I take this particular approach.
Okay, I agree with you that that's the best end goal, but we can't go from, okay, somebody who feels a lot of stress and anxiety to somebody who doesn't, you know, like right away. It's a process. And I deal with that a lot in my practice. So I give people tools to manage the stress while I'm teaching them how to get to that place where they don't feel that stress every time they encounter whatever situation is triggering it. So it's unlikely for a person to go, you know, like immediately to that, being able to see things differently.
So, yeah, so the one thing you could do, and you can do this at any time during the day, is, you know, you can check in to your body, see what's going on in there, feel the tightness in your gut, feel clenching in your heart, whatever is going on, and acknowledge, yep, that's how I'm feeling. Here it is. I felt this before, like big surprise. And then I'm going to be kind to myself about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say, okay, I'm going to that stop and count to 10 is always a good little trick. To take a deep breath. You know, it turns out that your mind follows your breathing. It's not so much the other way around. And so if you can consciously focus on slowing your breathing down, calming your breathing, often that will calm your mind in that moment too.
Yes.
But again, you have to remember to do it.
Yes, actually, that mental process that we go through when we get into that stress or anxiety mode is just that. It's something that we've set in motion that's happening in our brain. So if we can do anything to break that cycle, then we can stop it for that minute. That doesn't mean that we've stopped the trigger behind it. That's
that doesn't
the
mean,
process.
you haven't stopped the cortisol that's coursing through your veins either.
Well, you have, right, but you've stopped it for that minute. You've stopped the continuing process.
Right, don't continue to do it. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So like
And
anything that, like tossing a ball from one hand to another will break that cycle for you. Anything that disconnects the two hemispheres of the brain will stop that cycle for that minute. And then you can work on the, okay, count to 10. Why am I reacting this way? You know, what can I do about it? What can I do about this traffic being backed up? You know, I might as well, chill.
Yeah. And anything that gives you back some sense of control or sense of being in your power can help break that loop. And the cool thing is you do get to choose how you look at it. I remember one time I was driving home from Eastern Washington. I was going through the Palouse, and there's all these like winding 2-lane roads, and it was a bright, warm, sunny day, and there's all these campers and Winnebagos out on the road, and they were always going really slow. And every time I come up behind one, I'd have to slow down and wait to be able to pass them. And after a few hours of this, I could feel my shoulders were all tight, my hands were tight, and I didn't feel very good. And I saw what I was doing to myself, and I thought, well, I wonder if I can see coming up behind these Winnebagos and passing them as a sport, as a challenge. And I was able to switch it, and like within a few minutes, I was actually looking forward to coming up to the next Winnebago to see if I could pass it or not. So
yeah, and pretty soon you're like the world's best Winnebago passer.
And my shoulders were relaxed, my heart had calmed down. So how you interpret your experiences has a huge impact on how your body's functioning, and you can literally change your biology by changing your beliefs about things and changing how you interpret your experiences. So that's good. So I think you're right. People need both kinds of tools. They need something immediate in the moment, and then as they learn these other skills, then they won't need those things as much down the road.
Right.
They won't even go there
and then the whole, reinforcement reward goes in. Once you realize that you can have control over this and you feel better, then you start doing it naturally, because you don't want to have that anxiety feeling. It doesn't feel good.
Exactly. No, that's great.
So I've recently had somebody on my show talking about cranial sacral therapy and its benefits, and I know you use this in your practice. Can you tell us a little bit about how you use it and why it's a valuable treatment tool?
Yes. So about 6 or 7 years into my searching, when I, learning all these different things about health and healing, is when I came across craniosacral therapy, and it started as a subspecialty of osteopathy, and those are the doctors that have the DO after their name. Mm-hmm. And when I started looking into it, I had this really strong feeling of having come home after wandering the desert for 7 years, because I'd found a single modality that had a home in it for everything I've been learning about healing,
Mm-hmm.
and how to help people with it. Uh, so with the cranial work, for example, we can work with your physical body. So the alignment, the tension patterns in your fascia, how your organs are functioning, the lymphatic flow. We can access body memory. So there's all these things we can do with your body. But we can also work with your energy the same way that people do with Reiki or acupuncture. So we can work with how your body's, the energy is blocked or flowing, or the frequency it has, there's too much of it, too little of it. And again, it turns out your energy has its own way of storing memory as well. And then we can work with your mind, like, okay, how does your mind work, and what beliefs are being held in your unconscious mind, and finding and changing those limiting beliefs. And I use it a lot to actually help people dialogue with whatever ailment they have. So you can get people talking to their headaches, you can get people talking to their tumors, to their arthritis, to their autoimmune disease, whatever, and getting that maladies side of the story. And then we're usually in a position where we can negotiate and try to work things out. So, and then I think the highest form, though, is I found with the cranial work, I can help somebody learn how to really listen to their own deep knowing, to consult with it, to trust what they're hearing, and to take action on what they're hearing. So I've had a lot of fun with it. I've been really pleased with the results I get with it, and how deeply I can help people work with their processes.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about the responsibility of the individual in their own health and healing, and the role that that inner wisdom that you've been mentioning plays?
Well, so I think that responsibility means ability to respond. So it doesn't mean that you created it. So, I mean, obviously, if you're on the level of unity consciousness, then of course you created it, because there's only one consciousness. But most of us aren't living on that level in a practical way. And so, but at the same time, I think that, you know, every choice that we make has a consequence. And so we're living the consequences of our choice. And every moment of our life, we're making these choices. So taking responsibility for yourself in this usual sense means that, yep, I made that choice, and now I'm experiencing this consequence. So you're owning the responsibility for that choice. And I think this is a really important step in anybody's healing path, in the healing process, to take back, yep, I made that choice, and this is the consequence. Because if you look at, being victimized means, like, if somebody does something to you that you didn't ask them to do, or you didn't want them to do, then that's a pretty universal human experience. But being a victim is a way of looking at yourself. And I've never seen anybody heal and remain a victim at the same time. And so this taking responsibility for your choices, and then the fallout from those choices, is a way to stop being a victim and take your power back. So, but then also looking at it from the ability to respond. Again, no matter what situation you're in, you have different options you could choose on what you do next, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is, what if your response could be right action? What if your response could be the action that's going to bring about the results that are in everybody's highest good? And again, to know what that action is going to be, you need that deeper understanding of yourself, and I think to be in consultation with your own inner wisdom. And when people start living from that place, they start making choices that don't cause them as many problems down the road. So it's like a better way to live. So I think taking responsibility on both both ways of the meaning is really important for your healing.
So in your book, you outline processes for change and healing and getting in touch with your subconscious mind, changing limiting beliefs, dealing with feelings and emotions. So how will learning these processes help us heal?
Okay. Well, again, during my early years of searching, one of the things I was searching for is a definition for what is healing. And I was kind of shocked to find that after 7 years of medical training, no one had ever even defined the term. And so after years and years of searching, I came across the definition that healing is a process of finding out who you really are, in your heart of hearts, and then making choices consistent with that, or living in a way that's consistent with your heart. And so basically anything you can do to get to know yourself better is healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think your feelings and your emotions, basically they just kind of show up. You don't ask for them to be there necessarily. And so they contain information, and that information is just showing you how you work inside, because most of our workings are back in the unconscious. We're not aware of them. And so by working with our feelings and emotions in the proper way, we can start to uncover some of those inner beliefs and emotions that have been shaping our perceptions and shaping our choices, literally shaping our creative flow, and then bring them up into the light of consciousness, where we can get them aligned with what our heart knows, and then put the new aligned belief back in the unconscious mind. So that I think you can pretty well see that is healing, as you get to know yourself better, and then get your own set of beliefs aligned with higher truth. That's what healing is, in my opinion.
Okay. So in this process, really, that you've gone through in, changing your way of treating patients, what have you personally gained through that journey and the changes you've made in the way you look at healing and the practice of medicine?
Changed everything. Yeah. So throughout my career, I've actually tried to walk my talk, or practice my own medicine as much as I can. And so, I certainly didn't have the worst childhood I've heard of. But I do have my issues, obviously. And so over time, I've used these tools and this awareness to help myself. So, I've used this, so especially the idea of acceptance and self-compassion. So when I was younger, I was just always angry. Like I just had this uh, just irritation inside that was always going. And I was on my own harshest critic. I, was depressed a lot. By the time I was 16 years old, I was almost an alcoholic. And luckily I had enough awareness at that time to stop that behavior, not go down that path like most of my family members did. And so I've just, I've had my issues, and I would feel like I'm in a much, much better place now inside with, I'm not my harshest critic anymore. I can see my foibles and accept them and work with them. And I've had physical health problems. I've used it a lot to help with my degenerative disc disease in my back. I used to get muscle contraction headaches, and I don't anymore. Just all kinds of things that have improved. And when I started medical school, I really had this belief that conventional medicine had all the answers, or they were hot on the trail of the answers with research. And where I grew up, there was no alternative medicine, so I didn't even know about naturopaths or anything alternative. And but I also started medical school, I think, with a pretty healthy understanding of how science tries to answer that question that Like, how do we know that what we think we know is really true? And that's what science tries to answer that question, right?
Hmm.
And to science, data is more important than the theories, because theories are just our human attempt to try to explain nature,
Yeah,
right?
they're just an idea.
Yeah, it's just an idea somebody made up to try to explain the data. And there's always data that doesn't fit the existing theory. And that's going to be true until we fully understand nature, which I think is a ways off. And so in medicine, the data that we have to deal with is all of your experience, all of human experience, because all of your experience impacts your health to some degree. And I
Okay.
quickly saw conventional medicine just did not take all of human experience into account.
Okay.
And right, and
So,
so I really had to change the view of medicine and how to practice medicine. And so I started looking for a better theory to try to explain
right. I
things I've been
think
seeing.
you've already answered the question, and I don't want to cut you off, but I want to give you a chance. We're almost out of time, and
Okay.
I want to give you a chance to answer the last question. And that's if you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
Well, you deserve to live a happy and healthy life. And so keep searching. The answers are out there, and don't give up. And so keep listening to your heart, and keep trusting what you know.
Okay, that is really good advice. So that is all the time we have for questions today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hall, for sharing your book and your philosophy with us. And you can find out more about Dr. Hall by going to the radio website, and that's embracechangeradio.com. Click on guest info or click on the picture in the gallery of guests. You can also go to Dr. Hall's website, and that is the7tools.com, and that's the number 7tools.com. And you can reach him by phone at 425-557-7706. And so I hope you enjoyed the show today and learned something in the process. If you missed today's show, you'll want to listen to the podcast to get some wisdom from today's guest, Dr. Stephen Hall. To find our podcast, you can go to iHeart.com, Spotify, TuneIn, iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and sign up for podcasts. And you can do that by going to ctrnetwork.com/embrace change and click on the icons there, or you can go to the radio website and at the bottom of the home page or on the radio show page, click on the email icon. We have another great show planned for next week, and that is understanding and preventing suicide. This is a topic that affects many people today, and few people really know what to do or how to deal with it. So tune in for an informative and important show. Remember the great giveaways or giveaway for today. That's an ebook called Inner Peace. You can go to the radio website, click on giveaways and offers, and then fill in your info, and we'll send that out to you. So carry this thought with you through your week. The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is silencing the mind, and that was said by Carolyn Miss. Today's program rebroadcasts 11 p.m. Pacific Time. Listen next Monday, June 3rd at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, when we'll present Understanding and Preventing Suicide. Please visit the radio website at embracechangeradio.com for upcoming or past shows or info on guests by clicking on the guest info. You can email the show at info@embracechangeradio.com. Also, visit the Wellness Resources Guide for the best products, services, and programs. Companies are listed by category with links to their website or selling site. Books, music, art, and causes have special categories. Watch the video blog Soul Talks for discussions on topics related to mind, body, spirit, wellness. We also have a Facebook group called Embrace Change Radio After Chat, and you can ask questions there before or after the show. So please join the Facebook group. That's Embrace Change Radio After Chat. I want to say thank you again to our sponsor, CTFO CBD. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, try CTFO CBD. They make products to take you into the future of wellness. And you can go to the radio website, embracechangeradio.com/sponsors, and click on the image there. I'd like to thank John Lavelle, who's given his permission to use his music for our background music. Thank you for listening today. Remember to be fully present, grateful, and always amazing. Start your day with a smile. And the more often you smile, I think you'll find more reasons to smile. So tune in next week for another chance to embrace change and live your optimal life. Bye for now.